4 games into the series, and the Golden State Warriors see themselves down 3-1. Now, given the history between LeBron James and Stephen Curry, I find this to be hilariously ironic. But what went wrong with the Golden State Warriors? What's wrong with them that got them here in the first place? And could they potentially turn this series around? Probably not, but let's talk about it. Before I get into today's video, this video is sponsored by my podcast. Yeah, just my podcast. I host a podcast with the editor and producer of this channel, Rudy St. Clair, as well as another big NBA YouTuber you may have heard of named Alex Hoops, who makes excellent content. We do this podcast once a week live, and it's one of the most fun things I do. I think some of our most recent podcasts have been our absolute best, and our coverage for the playoffs has been really fun, so go check that out if you want to see even more of me, which, saying it out loud, why would you? But whatever. The thing that is kind of maddening about the Golden State Warriors is, as a team, they do have a lot of the right stats on their side. They're shooting more threes and hitting a much higher percentage. They're grabbing more rebounds, including more offensive rebounds, which, even with Kevon Looney's impressive performance versus the Sacramento Kings in round 1, I didn't expect that to be the case. In fact, for my series prediction, I said Looney's probably not going to be killing the boards as much, and he actually hasn't because he's played less because of sickness, I believe. They've been getting the boards regardless. And Looney did have 23 rebounds in game 1. Because of these offensive rebounds, the Warriors are also shooting 6.5 more shots per game. They also have a lot more assists than the Lakers, which, generally speaking, heavy assist offenses lead to better offense. But that's not been the case. The difference, of course, has been the defense. And I don't mean to suggest that the Warriors are playing bad defense, but rather that the Lakers are playing a brand of defense that's just so good, it's really swinging the math in their favor when it otherwise wouldn't be. Defense without fouling has been the key factor in this series, and that factor can be pretty much exclusively attributed to Anthony Davis. Now, I realize there is an argument that has been had on Twitter, basically, about this series having biased officiating, and I think it's fair to suggest that there is a bias for the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of obvious. But there's also a bias for the Golden State Warriors, and has been for a while. That's been well documented. So I think if it doesn't cancel it out, it doesn't make up for the full difference in free throw attempts, because the Lakers are shooting twice as many free throws as the Warriors are, and that's because the Lakers are an interior-minded team and the Warriors are an outside-minded team. Now, as someone who is very pro the three-point era and someone who really can't stand it when people are vehemently against it, maybe from an entertainment perspective, that's a fine point of view. But if you're like, it's actively bad basketball, you're just wrong. It's just mathematically proven to be wrong, and teams are not making those changes for a good reason. But there is a threshold you can reach with three-point attempts where you're no longer taking good threes, you're just forcing them. Like, you're probably not going to get 40 three-point attempts in an NBA game where 30 of them even are open looks. Most of them at this point from the Warriors don't seem to be. Both Steph, Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole, they're all big fans of these heavily contested outside shots, and even if they do go in at a respectable clip, it's still not as good as getting into the paint, in either getting a shot in the paint or getting fouled, as the Los Angeles Lakers have been. And that's how they've managed to make up for the math not being in their favor with the three-point attempts and percentage difference. Anthony Davis is just fantastic at protecting the rim without fouling, and as a result, the Warriors do not get a lot of free attempts at points. The three-point attempts being higher has been balanced out. And it doesn't help that the Lakers are also shooting 10% better from the line than the Warriors are. The other big issue has been inconsistency from players who are not Stephen Curry. I mean, there's also been inconsistency from Steph, but it's kind of just been by extension from the fact that his help is not helping all the time. Klay Thompson had 25 points in game 1 and notably 30 points in game 2 when they won, but in game 3 he had 15 points and 6 turnovers on 14 shots and 9 points on 11 shots in game 4. That's a pretty steep fall off there, Klay. Andrew Wiggins has put up fairly similar, if not a little bit disappointing, box score stats throughout the entirety of this series, but his impact from moment to moment, from possession to possession, even for large stretches of the game, it really feels like he's fading in and out of actually having an impact and even seemingly being on the floor. The amount of times after the game where I was like, what did Andrew Wiggins do? I genuinely can't remember half the time because it really seems like he isn't doing anything of note. He might get buckets here or there in the flow of the offense, but there's never been some Andrew Wiggins moment, some big Andrew Wiggins game or play or clutch moment or anything like that. He's just kind of been out there. Like, the best contribution he's had is defending LeBron James, and even then LeBron James is kind of just missing his jump shots for the most part. Like, that's the real reason he's not had the best series. Jordan Poole, 21 points in game 1. Obviously, he did have that one bad three-pointer, but overall, a very good performance. Then he had 6 points, then he had 5, and then in game 4, he had 0. And in those last 3 games, he went 5 for 19 from the field. Now, even Stephen Curry has struggled, but again, I don't want to put too much of the blame on him because it's kind of just been everybody else has sucked, so they look at Steph to save them, and against the defense that the Lakers have, he's not quite able to pull that off. In round 1 versus the Kings, Curry averaged 34 points per game. In round 2 versus the Lakers, 25 a game on much, much worse efficiency. He went 3 for 14 from outside in game 4. But again, it felt like Steph was putting these shots up simply because no one else was doing anything. So might as well see if I can just be Stephen Curry my way into a win. Hasn't happened though. The Lakers are not the Kings. You can't really get away with that. For the most part, I think the Warriors have defended the Lakers just fine. No one for LA is having a particularly good offensive series other than Lonnie Walker in the fourth quarter of last night's game. But the offense has been enough to outscore an offense from Golden State that doesn't get to the line and does not have consistent and reliable perimeter options. So, could the Warriors dig themselves out of this massive hole that they've put themselves in? Well, first of all, just objectively speaking, that would be hilarious. Like, maybe not if you're a Lakers fan, but just the irony of that, given the history between Steph and LeBron, it would be palpable. But as for my actual prediction, I'm going to go with a pretty hard no here. Of course, as Kevin Garnett famously said, anything is possible, but the odds are not in their favor, obviously being down 3-1, and maybe if they had shown a little bit more fight and a little bit more consistency in these 4 games, even being down 3-1, I would have a little bit more confidence in them, but they haven't. Not even a little bit. They have tried to Stephen Curry hero ball this series, and it doesn't seem like his teammates are ready to step it up when that clearly doesn't work. So I guess we'll see, but if I had to predict, I'm going to say that the Dubs probably win Game 5 on their home floor, and then LA closes it out in Game 6. Another big reason is I just feel like a lot of the issues that the Golden State Warriors have had in the past in this regular season, it's only been reflected more in this postseason. Obviously, they got a little bit further than some people predicted them to, but beating the Kings in round 1 really just came down to an experience difference. The Lakers are not lacking in experience. The core of LeBron and AD at the very least has won a championship, and they have a couple of players on this team that have been around the block a few times, at least a little bit, and they're not going to get beat up on like the Kings did. And even then, the Kings pushed them to 7 freaking games where it took a 50-piece from Steph in Game 7 to make it work. So again, just relying on Steph hero ball, no player in the NBA can win a series with hero ball. Not really anymore. But yeah, that's it. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.